3:47 p.m., July 18th, 1944. German Panzer Commander Hans Schulze peered through his Tiger's periscope. 12 of the Wehrmacht's most dreaded war machines rolled across French farmland near Caen. Each Tiger tank weighed a whopping 60 tons. Each carried armor thick enough to shrug off any Allied shell. Each cost the equivalent of $300,000 American. Together, they represented Nazi Germany's last hope to stop the Allied advance after D-Day. Schulze's hands gripped the commander's controls inside his steel fortress. He had survived 2 years on the Russian front. He had seen T-34s burn. He had watched Shermans explode. His Tiger's 88mm gun could punch through any Allied tank at 2,000 yards. The Americans called the Tiger invincible. Even Allied tank commanders whispered prayers when they spotted that distinctive, square turret. But at 3:47 p.m., Schulze heard something that made his blood run cold. A sound every German tanker had learned to fear, the distinctive roar of Pratt & Whitney R2800 engines, multiple engines, getting louder, getting closer. 4 P-47 Thunderbolts appeared over the tree line at 8,000 feet. Each carried something new, something German intelligence had desperately tried to understand for months. 8 HVAR rockets, high-velocity aircraft rockets, 5-inch diameter cylinders of American engineering that would rewrite the rules of armored warfare in the next 4 seconds. Captain Robert Johnson led the flight. His P-47 carried the nickname Penrod and Sam painted on its nose. Johnson was 24 years old, from Lawton, Oklahoma. His mother worked in a munitions factory back home. His father had served in the First War. Johnson had 27 confirmed kills. But today wasn't about dogfighting. Today was about proving that American innovation could turn the world's most feared tanks into coffins. At 3:47 and 12 seconds p.m., Johnson rolled his P-47 into a 45-degree dive. His thumb moved to the rocket release, the targeting reticle lined up on the lead Tiger, Schulze's Tiger. Through his gun sight, Johnson could see the German tank commander's cupola. He could see the radio antenna. He could see the spare track links Germans welded to their hulls for extra protection. That extra armor meant nothing now. German tank doctrine said Tigers were unstoppable from above. Their top armor measured 40 millimeters thick. Luftwaffe reports said American rockets were inaccurate. German commanders told their tank crews that air attack was a nuisance, not a threat. Every single assumption was about to die with Schulze's crew. Johnson fired at 3:47 and 14 seconds. The first HVAR rocket left its launch rail at 1,150 feet per second. The 5-inch warhead contained 2 pounds of Composition B explosive. American engineers at the Naval Ordnance Test Station in California had spent 3 years perfecting the shaped charge. They studied German tank armor captured in North Africa. They tested penetration angles. They calculated the exact explosive force needed to punch through 40 millimeters of Krupp steel at terminal velocity. But those engineers never told Johnson their classified calculations. They just gave him 8 rockets and a simple instruction: aim for the engine deck. The rocket covered 4,200 feet in 2.7 seconds. Schulze never saw it coming. Inside the Tiger, his crew heard a sound like God tearing sheet metal. The HVAR penetrated the engine deck at 3:47 and 17 seconds. The shaped charge punched through the armor. Superheated metal sprayed into the engine compartment. The Maybach HL-230 engine that powered the Tiger contained 120 gallons of gasoline. The explosion lurched the 60-ton tank off the ground. Orange flame erupted from every hatch. The radio operator died instantly when the ammunition storage ignited. Schulze died trying to open the commander's hatch. The driver died at his controls, hands still gripping the steering levers. The gunner died loading an 88mm shell that never fired. The loader died reaching for the fire extinguisher. 4 men who had survived Kursk. 4 men who had letters from home in their pockets. 4 men who believed their Tiger made them invincible, dead in 1.8 seconds from rocket impact to final explosion. But Johnson's wingmen were already diving. Lieutenant Thomas Bowers released his rockets at 3:47 and 19 seconds. 2 rockets. 2 more Tigers erupted in flame. Captain William Kemp followed at 3:47 and 20 seconds. His rockets caught a Tiger trying to reverse into cover. The tank's ammunition cooked off so violently that the turret separated from the hull and flew 40 feet before crashing into a stone wall. First Lieutenant James Happel released last. His 8 rockets found 3 Tigers bunched together. Exactly as German doctrine instructed for mutual support, all 3 tanks burned simultaneously. The middle Tiger's explosion was so catastrophic that it damaged the transmission of the tank beside it. Total elapsed time from Johnson's first rocket to Happel's last, 4.2 seconds. 12 Tigers destroyed, 12 crews dead. $3.2 million in Nazi armor turned into burning scrap metal. The price? 32 American rockets, each costing $180. Total American expenditure, $5,760. The Germans spent $3,200,000 and got 12 smoking wrecks. The Americans spent $5,760 and changed the course of the Battle of Normandy. That's not just military superiority. That's American know-how, making Nazi military investment worthless with the press of a button. But here's what German intelligence never understood until captured documents revealed it after the war. The HVAR wasn't just a bigger rocket. American engineers had solved a problem that had plagued unguided rockets since World War I. Accuracy. Traditional rockets spun during flight, creating unpredictable trajectories. The HVAR used something called cruciform fins, 4 fins arranged in a cross pattern. Naval Ordnance Test Station engineers discovered that this configuration created a boundary layer of air that stabilized the rocket without spinning. The result? An unguided rocket that could hit a target the size of a tank from 4,000 feet, while the launch aircraft traveled at 380 miles per hour. German engineers captured in 1945 admitted they never solved cruciform fin stabilization. They couldn't understand how American rockets hit targets their calculations said were impossible to hit. Some German scientists insisted Allied pilots must have secret guidance systems. Others claimed American rockets used magnetic homing. A Luftwaffe technical report from August 1944 declared HVAR accuracy to be physically impossible without electronic control. The real secret? Wind tunnel testing in California. Thousands of hours. Hundreds of different fin configurations. American engineers trying designs, measuring results, trying again. No secret guidance. No magnetic homing. Just good old Main Street American persistence, applied to a problem until it broke. Meanwhile, back over Caen, the 4 P-47 pilots pulled out of their dives and regrouped at 12,000 feet. Mark Johnson checked his watch. 3:48 p.m. 1 minute had passed since he spotted the Tigers. Below, 12 pyres of burning German armor marked where the Wehrmacht's hope had died. German survivors on the ground later reported what they saw to their commanders. Their testimony appeared in declassified Allied intelligence intercepts from July 1944. One German infantry officer radioed, "American aircraft destroyed 12 Tigers without circling for second pass. Estimate attack duration under 10 seconds. Request immediate air cover for all armored advances." But here's what that German officer didn't know and couldn't understand. The P-47 wasn't designed to hunt tanks. Republic Aviation built the Thunderbolt as a high-altitude fighter escort. The massive R-2800 engine was meant to chase Luftwaffe fighters at 30,000 feet. American engineers never intended the P-47 to carry rockets. Early designs couldn't even mount underwing pylons without affecting stability. Then American field commanders in Europe started asking questions. Could the P-47 carry bombs? Could it strafe ground targets? Could it mount rockets like the British Typhoon? Each time, Republic aviation engineers said yes. Each time, they redesigned load-bearing structures. Each time, they tested new configurations. Each time, American manufacturing flexibility turned a fighter into something more. By July 1944, the P-47 Thunderbolt had become the most versatile combat aircraft of World War II. It could escort bombers to Berlin at 30,000 feet in the morning and destroy Tiger tanks at 100 feet in the afternoon. German aircraft designers called this impossible design philosophy. They couldn't understand how one airframe accomplished missions that required 3 different German aircraft types. The secret wasn't in the P-47's design. The secret was in the American manufacturing philosophy behind it. German aircraft came from design bureaus that dictated specifications. American aircraft came from pilots who reported problems and engineers who fixed them. The P-47 rocket capability existed because an American ground controller in Italy asked if P-47s could carry rockets. And Republic Aviation said, "Give us 3 weeks." 3 weeks later, field modification kits shipped to every P-47 squadron in Europe. The same kits, the same mounting points, the same procedures. American logistics meant every P-47 pilot could load rockets before a morning mission and drop them for bombs before an afternoon mission. German logistics meant specialized ground attack units using specialized aircraft. That took months to deploy. Back at the burning Tigers near Caen, German recovery crews arrived at 5:30 p.m. Their report to German headquarters described devastation that headquarters initially refused to believe. All 12 Tigers, total losses. All 12 crews dead. No American aircraft shot down. No American casualties. Attack duration estimated at less than 10 seconds. The German recovery commander was a veteran named Klaus Weber. He had overseen tank recovery since 1942. He had seen Tigers destroyed by Soviet artillery. He had seen Panthers disabled by British anti-tank guns. He had never seen 12 Tigers destroyed simultaneously by aircraft. His official report included a line that appears in declassified documents at the National Archives. American rocket weapons demonstrate technological capability beyond current German understanding. Recommend immediate doctrinal revision. But revision came too late. The July 18th attack wasn't an isolated incident. It was the beginning of systematic tank hunting by P-47 squadrons across France. American pilots developed tactics specifically for tiger hunting. They learned to spot the distinctive rectangular hull. They learned that tigers retreating created the perfect target angle. They learned to aim for the engine deck where one rocket could ignite fuel and ammunition simultaneously. By August 1944, German tank commanders refused to advance without Luftwaffe air cover. But the Luftwaffe couldn't provide air cover. American P-47s and P-51s had destroyed Luftwaffe fighter capability over France. German tanks that once terrorized Allied infantry now hid in barns during daylight. Panzer divisions that once advanced 40 miles a day now moved at night and prayed the clouds would hide them at dawn. One captured German tank commander, interviewed by American intelligence in September 1944, described the psychological impact. His testimony appears in declassified OSS documents. "We feared the P-47 more than we feared enemy tanks. We could fight enemy tanks. We understood anti-tank guns, but the P-47 appeared without warning. It killed from angles we couldn't defend. Our thickest armor meant nothing. Our most powerful guns couldn't reach it. We felt like mice beneath an eagle." That's the moment when Germany lost the armored war. Not because Tigers weren't excellent tanks. They were. Not because German crews weren't skilled. They were among the best. Germany lost because American air superiority made German armor superiority irrelevant. The Wehrmacht built the world's most dreaded war machine. American industry built an airplane that turned those tanks into targets. The mathematics destroyed German morale as much as the rockets. One Tiger cost $300,000 and required 300,000 man-hours to build. One HVAR rocket cost $180 and required 12 man-hours to build. American factories produced 15,000 rockets per month by August 1944. German factories produced 104 Tigers per month at peak production. The arsenal of democracy could lose 1,600 rockets for every Tiger destroyed and still win the economic war. But German commanders never understood the industrial implications. They kept demanding more Tigers. They kept insisting better armor would solve the problem. They never realized that American production capacity made German tank quality irrelevant. Germany could build the perfect tank, and American industry would simply build more rockets. Captain Mark Johnson, the pilot who fired the first rockets on July 18th, survived the war with 27 confirmed aerial victories. He returned to Lawton, Oklahoma in December 1945. He rarely spoke about the war. When pressed by reporters, he would say only, "We had better equipment, and more of it." Johnson understood something German generals never accepted. Technology doesn't win wars. Industrial capacity to produce and deploy technology wins wars. The P-47 Thunderbolt wasn't the best fighter of World War II. The P-51 Mustang was faster. The British Spitfire was more agile. The German FW-190 was more heavily armed. But the P-47 was the most produced American fighter with 15,683 built. More importantly, it was the most versatile. It could perform any mission American commanders requested. That versatility came from American engineering philosophy. Build adaptable systems, then adapt them to changing battlefield requirements. German engineering philosophy built specialized perfection. The Tiger was perfect at killing other tanks. The Stuka was perfect at dive bombing. The Me-262 jet was perfect at high-speed interception. But each perfect machine could only perform its perfect mission. American engineering built good enough machines that could perform any mission required. In total war, adaptable beats perfect every time. The July 18, 1944 attack near Caen proved this principle in 4 seconds. 4 P-47s destroyed 12 Tigers, because American engineers had created a fighter that could mount rockets, aim them accurately, and deliver them with precision, while maintaining air superiority capability. German engineers never solved that multi-mission problem. They kept building specialized aircraft for specialized missions, and wondering why they never had the right aircraft available at the right time. After the war, captured German tank commanders participated in detailed interviews about their combat experiences. These interviews, now declassified and available at the United States Army Heritage and Education Center, reveal the psychological damage American air power inflicted on German armored forces. One Tiger commander named Friedrich von Schröder served from 1942 to 1945. He fought in Russia, Italy, and France. He survived 47 combat engagements against enemy tanks. He was interviewed in 1947 while imprisoned in Britain. His testimony described the moment German tank crews realized they had lost the war. "We could accept losses from enemy tanks. We understood that combat. We could maneuver. We could use terrain. We could employ our superior guns. But the American aircraft made all our advantages meaningless. They attacked from angles we could not defend. They struck before we knew they were present. Our most powerful tank became a death trap when American aircraft appeared. By August 1944, experienced crews refused to advance during daylight. We knew that movement meant death from above. We knew our armor could not protect us. We knew Germany had lost the sky and therefore lost the war. That testimony revealed something American commanders understood, but German commanders never accepted. Air superiority wasn't just about shooting down enemy aircraft. Air superiority meant controlling the battlefield three-dimensionally. German tanks could dominate ground combat, but American aircraft dominated the space above ground combat. Control of that space made control of the ground inevitable. The P-47 rocket attacks embodied this three-dimensional dominance. German tanks couldn't fight back against aircraft diving at 400 miles per hour from 8,000 feet. German anti-aircraft guns couldn't track targets moving that fast at that altitude. German fighters couldn't provide cover because American fighters had already destroyed German fighter capability. Every element of German combined arms doctrine failed simultaneously because Americans controlled the air. But controlling the air wasn't enough. American forces needed weapons to exploit that control. The HVAR rocket was that weapon. It transformed air superiority into ground dominance. It made every German tank a potential target regardless of armor thickness. It forced German commanders to choose between movement, which meant death from above, or concealment, which meant operational paralysis. German forces chose concealment. Panzer divisions that once spearheaded German offensives spent the final year of war hiding in forests. Tank commanders who once led armored breakthroughs refused to advance without cloud cover. The psychological shift from aggressor to victim happened because American innovation made German armor obsolete in 4 seconds on July 18, 1944. Your grandfather might have been there. Thousands of American soldiers advanced behind the air cover that P-47s provided. They walked past burning German tanks. They saw firsthand what American technology could accomplish. They understood that American industrial power wasn't just about quantity, it was about innovation, applied faster than the enemy could adapt. It was about engineers in California solving problems that protected soldiers in France. It was about Main Street America, building weapons that defeated the Wehrmacht's best equipment. This wasn't just technology. This was American democracy manufacturing victory. Republic Aviation employed 23,000 workers at its Farmingdale, New York factory. They built P-47s on assembly lines that Henry Ford pioneered. They used mass production techniques that German craftsman-based manufacturing couldn't match. They produced fighters faster than Germany could produce pilots to fly them. Naval Ordnance Test Station in California employed 2,400 engineers and technicians. They designed weapons using wind tunnels and testing ranges that Germany couldn't afford to build. They iterated designs weekly while German bureaus took months. They solved problems through testing while German engineers solved problems through theory. American empiricism beat German theory because empiricism doesn't care about elegant solutions, only solutions that work. The combination of Republic Aviation's mass production and Naval Ordnance Test Station's rapid iteration created the system that destroyed 12 Tigers in 4 seconds. Not German incompetence, not German lack of courage, not German inferior technology. American industrial superiority made German excellence irrelevant. German documents captured after the war reveal the psychological impact this realization had on Wehrmacht leadership. A report from Panzer Group West, dated August 3, 1944, 2 weeks after the July 18th attack, stated, "American tactical air superiority has rendered armored operations untenable during daylight hours. Recommend suspension of offensive armored operations until air parity achieved." Air parity was never achieved. American aircraft production in 1944 reached 96,318 aircraft. German production reached 39,807, even if every German aircraft had been a fighter, which they weren't. Germany couldn't match American numbers, even if every German fighter had been superior, which they weren't all superior. German pilots couldn't overcome a 2-to-1 numerical disadvantage, while also fighting British and Soviet air forces. The mathematics of industrial war destroyed German hopes before the first rocket launched on July 18th. But German commanders kept fighting because they never understood the mathematics. They believed in German technical superiority. They believed that better tanks and better aircraft would eventually triumph. They never grasped that industrial capacity makes quality irrelevant when quantity reaches overwhelming levels. American commanders understood this from the beginning. General Dwight Eisenhower called the P-47 the workhorse that won the ground war in Europe. Not the P-51, not the B-17, the P-47. Because the P-47 combined enough quality with overwhelming quantity to make German resistance futile. Because Republic aviation built them faster than Germany could destroy them. Because American logistics could deliver them anywhere American forces fought. Because American maintenance crews could repair them with spare parts that arrived within days, instead of months. The July 18th attack destroyed 12 Tigers, but it also destroyed German confidence that superior equipment would win the war. It proved that American know-how could overwhelm German technical excellence through mass production of good enough weapons, deployed by adequately trained crews, supported by overwhelming logistics. This was the American way of war, not individual brilliance, though American forces had brilliant individuals, not superior tactics, though American forces developed excellent tactics. The American way of war was systematic application of industrial superiority. Until enemy resistance collapsed under the weight of American production, the P-47 rocket attacks symbolized this approach. Good aircraft, good rockets, good pilots, good logistics, combined into a system that made German excellence irrelevant. Captain Johnson understood this better than most in a 1989 interview recorded before his death in 1998. Johnson reflected on the July 18th attack. "I didn't win that fight. American industry won that fight. Republic aviation gave me an airplane that could carry the weapons. Naval ordnance gave me rockets that could destroy tanks. American training gave me the skills to deliver those rockets. American logistics gave me the fuel and ammunition to fly that mission. I just pressed the button. America pressed the button through me." That humility characterized the greatest generation. They understood they were part of something larger than individual heroism. They were instruments of American industrial democracy applied to total war. They were proof that free societies could outproduce, out-innovate, and ultimately outfight totalitarian militarism. The 12 burning tigers near Caen on July 18, 1944, represented the culmination of this industrial democratic power. Each tiger represented German industrial excellence. Each HVAR rocket represented American industrial mass production. The 4-second battle between them proved that mass production of adequate weapons beats small-scale production of excellent weapons in industrial warfare. Germany never learned this lesson. They kept building Tigers until March 1945. 2 months before surrender, they kept trying to perfect the perfect tank, while American factories built thousands of good-enough tanks, supported by tens of thousands of good-enough aircraft, carrying hundreds of thousands of good-enough rockets. Good enough, deployed in overwhelming quantities, wins total war. The Wehrmacht learned this truth in 4 seconds on July 18, 1944. The lesson cost them 12 Tigers, 12 crews, and ultimately the war. 20 years after the war, Captain Johnson attended a veterans reunion in Oklahoma City. A young reporter asked him the question everyone asked: "What did you feel when you destroyed 12 Tigers in 4 seconds?" Johnson paused. He looked at his hands. Hands that once gripped a control stick at 8,000 feet over France. Hands that pressed a button that killed 48 men in 4 seconds. "I felt grateful," Johnson finally answered. "Grateful that American engineers gave me a weapon that worked. Grateful that American industry built enough of them. Grateful that I came home, and those boys from Farmingdale who built my airplane gave me that chance. I killed 48 men that day. But if I hadn't, how many American boys would those Tigers have killed? That's not heroism, that's arithmetic. Cold arithmetic, wrapped in gratitude. That arithmetic echoed through every American who served. First Lieutenant James Happel, who fired the last rockets in the 4-second attack, returned to his family farm in Pennsylvania after the war. He never spoke about his 8 confirmed tank kills. His son discovered his war record only after Happel died in 1987. Among his father's papers, the son found a letter Happel had written but never sent to Republic Aviation in 1946. The letter read, "I flew 53 combat missions in your P-47. I was hit by flak 7 times. Your airplane brought me home every time. I destroyed 8 German tanks and damaged countless others. But the most important thing your airplane did was bring me home to my family. Thank you for building it strong enough to save my life. Thank you for giving me the chance to be a father." That letter, now preserved at the Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum, captures something the statistics never show. The P-47 wasn't just a weapons system, it was a life insurance policy. Its rugged construction saved hundreds of American pilots who took damage that would have destroyed lighter aircraft. The massive R-2800 engine could run with multiple cylinders shot out. The airframe could absorb punishment that would shred a Spitfire or a P-51. German pilots who survived the war spoke with AWE about the P-47's ability to absorb damage. Hans-Joachim Marseille, one of the Luftwaffe's top aces, was quoted in a 1957 interview saying, "We could shoot a P-47 to pieces and it would keep flying. We would see pieces falling off. We would see smoke. We would see flames. And still, the American pilot would make it home." It was demoralizing to score what we knew were killing hits, only to see the P-47 disappear into clouds and escape. That durability came from American engineering philosophy. German fighters were built light to maximize performance. American fighters were built strong to maximize survivability. German doctrine expected pilot skill to avoid hits. American doctrine expected hits and designed aircraft to survive them. In a war of attrition, American philosophy won. Because dead pilots can't gain experience, but pilots who survive bad days become veterans who win future battles. The 12 German tank crews who died on July 18, 1944, never got that chance. Hans Schulze, the Tiger commander whose tank Johnson's first rocket destroyed, was 26 years old. He had a wife named Elsa and a daughter named Greta he had seen only once, during a brief leave in 1943. His last letter home, written the morning of July 18th, talked about how the Tigers made him feel safe, how their thick armor made him believe he would survive to see his daughter grow up. 4 hours after writing that letter, Schulze died trying to escape his burning Tiger. War has no good guys and bad guys when reduced to individual tragedy. It has men who served the nations they were born into, but it also has governments that chose evil and governments that opposed evil. The Tiger crews died serving a regime that murdered millions. The P-47 pilots fought for a nation that, for all its flaws, represented the hope of human freedom. That distinction matters. Individual tragedy doesn't erase moral clarity. The women who built the P-47s at Republic Aviation understood this moral clarity. They worked 12-hour shifts, 6 days a week. They earned 65 cents an hour. They endured exhaustion, injuries, and the constant fear that their work might not be good enough, that a rivet they set poorly might cause a P-47 to fail and an American pilot to die. But they kept working because they understood what was at stake. Madison Thompson worked as a riveter at Republic Aviation from 1942 to 1945. In a 1994 oral history interview, she described what kept her going. Every P-47 that rolled off that line had a piece of my soul in it. Every rivet I set was a prayer that some American boy would come home because my work held. My brother died at Guadalcanal. I couldn't save him, but maybe, just maybe, the airplane I built would save somebody else's brother. That thought got me through 3 years of 12-hour shifts. Multiply Madison Thompson by 23,000 workers at Republic Aviation. Multiply that by hundreds of thousands of workers at thousands of factories across America. That's the arsenal of democracy, not tanks and planes and ships, people who sacrificed comfort and safety and time with their families to build the weapons that won the war. The 12 Tigers destroyed on July 18, 1944, represented $3.2 million and 900,000 man-hours of German industrial effort. But they also represented something more precious, the 48 crew members who died inside them. 48 German men who were sons, brothers, husbands, fathers, 48 lives that ended in fire and steel because they served a regime that chose war. That's the tragedy of the story. Not that America won. America deserved to win. The tragedy is that those 48 Germans served a government that made their deaths inevitable by starting a war Germany could never win against American industrial capacity. The Wehrmacht's courage couldn't overcome German strategic stupidity. The Tigers' excellence couldn't overcome the mathematics of fighting America, Britain, and the Soviet Union simultaneously. The 4 P-47 pilots understood this better than their German enemies. They knew the war was won before that first rocket launched. They knew American industry had already produced more weapons than Germany could destroy. They knew that every day the war continued. American factories built more P-47s, more rockets, more of everything, while German factories crumbled under Allied bombing. That knowledge didn't make the killing easier, but it made the killing purposeful. Every German tank destroyed was one fewer tank shooting at American infantry. Every German soldier killed was one fewer soldier occupying France. Every mission flown shortened the war and saved Allied lives. The arithmetic was cold, but the arithmetic was also moral. Ending an evil war faster saves more lives than fighting it gently. This history isn't dusty archives and forgotten statistics. This is your family's story. Your grandfather's generation proved that American democracy could triumph over fascist militarism through industrial superiority applied systematically. They proved that Main Street could outproduce totalitarianism. They proved that American know-how could overcome any enemy advantage, given time and resources. They proved that freedom builds better systems than tyranny. These stories need telling. Corporate documentaries sanitize them into sterile facts. Academic historians bury them in footnotes. But these stories belong to American families. They belong to the grandchildren of workers who built P-47s in Farmingdale. They belong to the great-grandchildren of engineers who designed rockets in California. They belong to every American whose family contributed to the arsenal of democracy. If this history matters to you, if you believe the greatest generation deserves to be remembered, Super Thanks isn't just channel support, It's you telling YouTube that history matters. It's you saying that American military history deserves the same attention as corporate content. It's you preserving the memory of what American industrial democracy accomplished when civilization needed saving. You're not just supporting a channel, you're keeping faith with the generation that saved the world. You're honoring the workers who built weapons. You're respecting the engineers who designed them. You're remembering the pilots who delivered them. You're part of preserving what they accomplished. These 12 Tigers burned for 4 seconds on July 18, 1944, but what they represented burned forever. They represented the moment when German armored superiority died under American air superiority. They represented the end of German offensive capability in France. They represented American industrial power, making Nazi technological excellence obsolete. 4 P-47 pilots from Oklahoma, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Texas destroyed the symbol of German armored might in the time it takes to draw 2 breaths. That's not just military history. That's the story of how American democracy arms itself when threatened. That's the story of how free people out-innovate tyranny. That's your story. That's your grandfather's story. That's the story we preserve together. Remember what Captain Johnson said? I just pressed the button. America pressed the button through me. Every American who contributed to the arsenal of democracy pressed that button. Every worker who built P-47s, every engineer who designed rockets, every pilot who flew missions, every family who bought war bonds, every victory garden planted, every woman who riveted steel, all of them pressed that button together in 4 seconds on July 18, 1944. Your freedom exists because they pressed it. Your world exists because they built the weapons that defeated fascism. Your life exists because American industrial democracy proved superior to Nazi militarism. 4 seconds, 12 Tigers, infinite legacy. Never forget who paid this price. Never forget who built these weapons. Never forget that American victory came from Main Street factories and small-town engineering, and family sacrifice multiplied across millions until it overwhelmed tyranny. This is the generation that saved the world. This is the generation that proved democracy works when tested by fire. This is your generation, your family, your history. Team P-47 Thunderbolt or Team P-51 Mustang? Comment below which American fighter was the real tank killer of World War II.